Hello and welcome back to another week of astrology. Today we're going to cover May 9th through May 15th of 2021. Before I begin, I'd like to thank you if you follow my content. I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate your goodwill, and I thank you for listening. I'd like to thank God, who gives wisdom, that we can look into these heavenly mysteries, and I pray that He will give us wisdom and understanding and insight in His holy name, Jesus' name. Thank God. So we're going to start with now, just so I can make sure I'm doing this at the right time. Okay. All right. So this week is a pretty mental week. I think it has two distinct sides to it. So you can see that here's today. We talked about it. It is what it is. And tomorrow is what it is too. And that's really what we're coming off of for the rest of the week as the moon finally wanes, goes through the new moon, and then really things kick off, but we don't see much of what that is going to mean until the next week. This week is, the really way to say it is the new moon is right in the middle of it, right? So by the end of the week, the moon will not have even made the sextile aspect to the sun, barely beginning this new phase. So there is an opportunity to let go of this Taurus area of your life and the last part of Aries, really, and to allow a new beginning for this area of your life, which is, I think I use that phrase a little bit too much. I mean, it is exactly true, but based on the house system, if you understand it. But I think, it is more holistic. It's, really letting go and setting the seeds for what can be done in the next month in this area of your life. But, as we're going to talk about, this week really pertains more to the mercurial developments that are going to be happening and the things that are going to be happening in Gemini for the next 2 months. Including with the sun and the moon. So the next new moon, to go ahead and tell you, is the annual solar eclipse in Gemini. So the moon and the sun will be very close to the north node, and Mercury retrograde will be right there as well, moving back into the inferior conjunction with the sun. So this new moon, I feel like, is special in a way that it, almost 1 month precedes, or is the definition of 1 month preceding this next lunar eclipse. So that's what I have on that account. So we'll get into the week. I said it was a mental week. To say one more thing, we have Mercury going through the North Node on Monday, and then Mercury making the trine to Saturn on Wednesday. So, and while the moon is in Mercury's house, and the moon makes a connection to now Venus-ruled, or Mercury-ruled Venus. And of course, at the end of the week, we will see a different development. Jupiter will go into Pisces, but that's really, if this week has 3 parts, the first part is, this transitional moment of Venus into Gemini. It's a new social energy. The new, we're letting go into the new moon. There's a development, a new mental development. And so that's the first part. Well, the first the first part is this moon uh, going into the new moon. The second part, conceptually at least, is these mental mercurial things, and then what I would call, the third part of this week, if we're gonna go all the way here, would be these developments with Jupiter and Pisces. Jupiter ruled Pisces interacting with the moon through Neptune, these squares and trines to Neptune, with the moon in a water sign. So that's really the third part. But okay, now that we've said too much, we can go to the weekly transits. Okay, so we start off Sunday morning with the square to Pluto, and the moon moves through the sextile to Jupiter by the late afternoon, and the moon will be void of course until it moves into Taurus. So it's not as uncomfortable as the moon going through that final bit of Capricorn where Pluto currently is retrograde. It's not as uncomfortable. It is the connection to power control dynamic, as is a one great way to put it. But it's connected to Jupiter, so I mean, in the that'll probably be like the mood of the morning, that early afternoon. But there is this beneficence that will come in, beneficence that will come in before the moon goes into Taurus. The moon will be void of course off of this sextile and then the square to Jupiter. So I mean, these two void of course times are actually going to be pretty good because Jupiter's in a he's in the anaretic degree, he's in the critical degree, but he's benefic. So I feel like during these void of course moons, because Jupiter is in this anaretic critical degree, the 29th degree, and of course when the moon makes this sextile, it will be a critical moment to examine these Jupiter themes in your life, maybe to look at the overall plan that you have, or not the plan exactly, but the vision more, the vision, really tuning into the vision as it relates more to this Aquarius side of your chart and this Aquarius energy expression, because we will be coming back to it after Jupiter retrogrades back into Aquarius. Okay, so that's pretty much Monday or Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday. So by the evening, the moon will be in Taurus, moving through. The moon isn't moving into a hard angle, so I mean it'll probably be at least pretty nice. I feel like the moon and Mars can get along here in a better way now that the moon is basically applying the sextile to Mars since all day for Monday. But Monday, is the time that these mental themes, so to speak, mental or really strictly speaking mercurial themes are moving into the North Node, the head of the dragon. So they will come to a full stimulation. Things are coming to a head in a way with Mercury, which, when he's moving direct, has more of a signification of ordinary business activity, what we do to provide for ourselves in the most like in the way that's most necessary, basically business activity. So I mean, however that's been building up for you for this time, because Mercury is so direct and fast this time, this is the maximum point of stimulation, and I would expect that after this point, when Mercury is moving away from the North Node, there will be somewhat of a malefic effect on the Mercury function as it moves away, and Mercury will move back to this North Node when in his retrograde, and he will pass it very close to the solar eclipse. So this is definitely a day to be aware, to be focusing on this. I wouldn't, get so lost in like your business at this point. I would be more aware of like, okay, this Mercury is very close to the eclipse energy, and he is. What does this mean? What themes are coming up for me? What are the manifestations that are tied to this, essentially? All right, that's what I want to say about that. So, as the moon moves through Taurus on Monday, it's very nice that we can get the visual these days. The moon will move into the conjunction to Uranus basically at the same time as Mercury moves through the North Node. So there could be an unexpected event, an unexpected manifestation, a inventive situation, a revolutionizing, liberating experience in the face of difficulties, something that's been building up with what you've been trying to do for some time. Finally, this is that critical climax moment, basically. And, I think with Venus having been so close to Jupiter and our value situations, what we have, what we value in many ways, has had this benefic influence on it in a critical way. We've been trying to get this picture, we're trying to manifest it, we're trying to do everything we can to do it within the bounds of what's reasonable for right now. And, Mercury going through there and the moon going through the conjunction to Uranus, it really speaks more to, breaking through the situation. I don't know, and the thing is that the moon will be moving through the square to Saturn immediately after that. And now this moon, and the next aspect the moon will make is the conjunction to the sun, the new moon. So this new moon is as close to the Saturn Uranus square as it could be. So, there was a new moon in Aries that was basically on top of the Venus Pluto square. And I definitely did see that it was setting the seeds for like a type of financial instability for people in general, or situations in general. So this could be this type of instability is having new seeds set for it, and we will certainly see them show up when the moon makes contacts to Uranus and Saturn as the weeks go on from here, because this is the defining time for Mercury, Moon, Sun themes. They've been cleared out throughout the year in a certain way, and now there's an opportunity to set the stage, new seeds for new situations around this. And what Saturn, I think, is telling us about this is that this is a good thing, but, it basically requires discipline. It requires being careful about excess, about being careful about waste in a way, or, inventiveness gone wrong is what Saturn is drawing the red tape for. So there is that, and so it's not, point being is it's not purely this Uranus thing. We had that the past couple years, but now Saturn is here. Saturn wants to create rules and structures so that everybody can pretty much have access to it, right? Everybody can have equal access to these new, inventive, liberating things in the Taurus area. Everybody, Saturn, if Aquarius is like how people are basically equal and having equal power within a group, less individual, or Aquarius has this thing where it's very individual, but very conformed to a group ideal. So I've said enough. That's the long and short of what I think this means in the context of the new moon. All right. So on Tuesday morning, the moon will go through, well, it's actually not until the afternoon that we even get the new moon. I was thinking about it like it was that night. But this new moon is, the moon has the energy from Uranus, Saturn, and it's definitely really important because, this square is going to be going on. But the moon, when it's actually on top of the sun, will be closer to the trine to Pluto and the sextile to Neptune. So this makes me, we've seen this before, Neptune and Pluto have been in this sextile for a little bit, where it's really pretty close. So, it's a dreamlike connection to power. It's a spiritualized, easy, power transformative situation with Neptune on both sides, or with Neptune intermediating between this power exchange. So, it can be like an oceanic sort of way to tap into power, for better or worse. And the moon is right there, the new moon. So there's a new seed for this entire energy as well. All right, and that doesn't perfect the sextile. The Neptune sextile will perfect at 5 o'clock p.m. basically, and the trine to Pluto will perfect after midnight on Wednesday. And then the moon will go into the square to Jupiter by the morning and be void of course off of that very briefly until the moon goes into Gemini. So we just chunked through that right there. I don't want to go that fast, but yeah. So the moon will move through there, move through those angles. So it looks like a powerful situation, for better or worse. It's connected to power, possibilities, and so on. And then we have this theme of Mars sextile Uranus that's perfecting right here. So as the moon moves through this next phase, the moon will be able to pick up on a very liberating expression of being from Uranus and apply that in this Mars in Cancer way. And that'll really come into play when the moon gets into Virgo, and it'll basically be able to make a trine to the sun. So definitely that's on the horizon, as a possibility, that's kind of being seeded from this new moon. Okay. So Mars, Uranus, the ability to tap into a liberative, inventive way of drive, basically, to connect your drive to this liberative expression, this strange expression, this weird expression, if you want. Something, Uranus has these many meanings like Neptune does. But, okay, before we get lost, the moon will move through the square to Jupiter. So we're picking up on this like right early in the morning. I don't know if we'll really notice it, but it's this benefic influence. I think we'll really just kind of get a wave of that as the moon moves into Gemini and connects to Venus. And that won't happen until about 5:20 p.m. But Mercury will move through the trine to Saturn at this point, which I think is great. That's like an opportunity to really understand the way that we're going to be able to do the activities that allow us to get what we need in this whole Saturn in Aquarius thing, right? Because Mercury is in his own house, Saturn's in his own house. They're making a trine. They're not in any hard angles to each other. So, this is a great energy, I think we can really see something about the way that we're going to do business in the future at this time, and how that can be connected to discipline in the most auspicious way, perhaps. So, the moon will be in Gemini that time, and will be moving into the conjunction to Venus. So, this Venus, people will probably be very sociable at this moment, but in this, if the ruler of Venus is going through this trine to Saturn, it is cooled off. It is cool. This whole time that Mercury has already been in Gemini, it's felt good but subdued, and I think it's a good thing for Gemini energy to go through that. Gemini energy can be too whimsical, and I think it will find a better expression when it goes through this disciplinary process. So that's a good thing, and I think it can be sweet and nice and sociable at that time as well. So, by the morning, the moon will approach the north node. And look at Jupiter now. Jupiter's at the last 5 minutes of the anaretic degree. So this day, let me make sure, check my notes. This is the day that Jupiter goes into Pisces. So I'll just show you that. Okay, so Thursday, the sun is perfecting the sextile to Neptune by midnight. So the days around this, our energy will be connected to these higher spiritual possibilities, these unities. Neptune has a signification of a grand unity, and our energy can really be with that, in that oceanic way. So that's a possibility. The moon will be going through the conjunction to the north node and the trine to Saturn. So the moon is going through this eclipse point where he'll be at during the solar eclipse. And he's at the same time going through the trine to Saturn, which I think is great, and the moon going through Mercury there, we could really get that manifest version of this energy. It can really show up today, which is amazing. Less in the abstract, but the corporeal aspect of it. But I think in one way, it is a time to consider letting go, because when the moon goes through the lunar eclipse later this month, in Sagittarius, there will be this letting go in this area of your chart, or whatever context you're looking at. So that is happening, and then by the end of the day, Jupiter goes into Pisces, which is Jupiter's own house. Yay! He's not under the reign of Saturn in the transiting sense. In the mundane sense, he is going to be under Saturn this whole year. He will be in his own house, conjunct Mercury, I think, during the 2022 revolution. But at this time, he still is, in a sense, under Saturn, but, in the transiting sense, he won't be, basically. So, the other astrologers that know more about that can tell you about that. I don't know. I just don't know. I know a lot of Jupiter and Pisces people, which is they're wonderful people. They're so sweet and good natured, and I do like to think I have heard the metaphor of Jupiter and Pisces being like, well, think about Pisces. It's like a unified field of consciousness, right? Well, Jupiter can just expand in its completely possible ways in that environment. No limit of possibilities for Jupiter to expand and yet still be grounded. It makes me think of Tai Chi. You know, it's completely unified. The Yang and the Yin lines are in the correct order. So very much that's kind of what I think about it, but you know what it means for your business or your chart. I don't really know. That's not really something I've specialized in. So okay, but I would like to know. I'm not saying that I don't want to know. So when we get into Friday, the first thing that'll happen is the moon will go through the square to Neptune and then go void of course about 5:50 in the morning. And the moon will be void of course off of Neptune all day. But the interesting thing is that this Neptune is ruled by Jupiter in his own house. So this is really the first dose of Neptune ruled by Jupiter we've ever had. Neptune was not in Pisces 12 years ago. So this is a completely new energy for all of us. And, that's the interesting thing is that Neptune's an obscure force that wasn't discovered until fairly lately in the course of the history. So this is a really interesting time, and I think books will be written about this energy based on the experiences people have during this time, which is quite interesting. So this Neptune is not well, he has a better dignity now because he's being ruled by Jupiter. So it could be good in a way. I'm very hesitant to say that Moon squared Neptune void of course for 15 hours is good, but in a way, I think this could be a very great wave of beneficence. Could be. We'll see. I really don't know. But by the end of the day, the moon will move through the final degrees and enter Cancer at 20:30 hours, 8:30 p.m. And we'll immediately move into the trine to Jupiter. So I think this is, if it wasn't good before, this is definitely it right here. Jupiter is in, let's see what degree is he in at that point. He's only in the 7 minutes. So I mean, the moon will, as soon as the moon enters Cancer, that's about 15 on the clock minutes, not astronomical minutes, but on the clock, whatever. 15 minutes that the moon will be in Cancer before he applies the trine to Jupiter, which is wonderful, and I just have no idea what that'll be like. It's very interesting. But I mean, it'll be just this jolt, I think, of Jupiter. Jupiter rules the trine. This is prime time. Jupiter, this is his time for this energy to happen until the sun goes through the trine to him, and he goes retrograde, which isn't bad. But this is this moment. This is this time period we have, which this Jupiter direct in Pisces thing. Okay, so I mean, it just looks like a jolt, and the moon is moving off of that into the sextile to Uranus. Well, if that's the interesting thing, is that's like the last aspect we have, May 15. That's really all that's going on. And the moon only has the light from Jupiter. So the moon is, once the moon moves through that jolt of Jupiter energy there, I mean, that's the energy that Mars has, for this time. Mars is doing a pretty good thing. And the moon is moving through this, well, to put it finally, this final sextile to Uranus there. So, you know, it's certainly connected to these developments that happened with the new moon. We've talked about, and other astrologers have talked about how Uranus and Taurus, you know, it's a revolution in, you know, this, what we consider valuable, basically. So, I mean, it naturally connotes money, it naturally connotes valuables. So there is this connection to valuing this thing. And that's pretty much what I have for you this week. So, I mean, there's that connection there. So I thank you for watching my video, and I just want you to know that I've changed the way I'm going to set up my channel. These weekly reports will continue. They'll be coming out on Sundays. I like that because that's the first day of the week, but you know, they will be available for early access viewing on Patreon for $3, and you will also get early access to a monthly report a week before the end of May for June. And I've also moved my mundane astrology reports over to Patreon as well. And I have a different tier for that. Add $2 to that $3 tier. At $5, you'll have access to all of my mundane astrology reports. And I have several of those planned. I'm working on now. I have that third video talking about the different houses for the East USA chart, and I'm planning the West USA movable chart video, which is considerably more involved, seeing that you have to erect 4 schema per year because it's a cardinal sign rising, a movable sign. So you have to look at each station of the sun, the solstice, and so on, in order to determine the mundane context. So that's coming, and after that I'll do the 2022 videos for the same areas, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So you can check all that out on Patreon, and I think that's all I have. There's other videos I have planned too. I want to do a video on Uranus in Gemini, talking about what happened last time Uranus was in Gemini and what it'll be like now. If we think that, and I think here's the reason I bring that up is I want to even give you that possibility to think about this with me before I make that video, because Uranus, we've already seen what he's done in Taurus during this time, right? And we kind of don't even talk about Uranus and Aries anymore. So I mean, there's a whole scope for a video there too, to really get the context of what this liberative, inventive, weird force is. You know, and we kind of know what Uranus is doing in Taurus, right? It's an obscure force, but you know, it's definitely changing things in what we value in the most basic sense. What's valuable, what's tangible, what's real. Things that you can have that are good, you know what I mean? So that's Uranus there. But think about Uranus and Gemini. What is that? What is that? And I think we can, here's the point. While Mercury is moving through Gemini, I think we have an opportunity to consider what that will be like. So don't let that thought escape you. I mean, we'll have plenty of time to think about this stuff as Mercury retrogrades in Gemini, but I think we can really pick up on the insights of what Gemini is and what Uranus will do when he's there. So that's really it. Thanks for watching my video as always. God bless you in Jesus' name.